Mornings in New York always come quickly. At first light, Haley was already awake. Last night's party replayed in her mind over and over again. Richard's gaze, Monica's warning, Anna's provocation, and Alexander's voice asking her, "Do you trust me?" They all flooded back like a tide. Haley went downstairs. Linda was thinly, one busy in the kitchen. Her expression was unusually gentle. "You had a hard time last night, didn't you?" Haley nodded and whispered, "I feel like a kitten among lions. Everyone is watching me." Linda sighed and handed her a plate of baked croissants. "Here, no one can truly let their guard down. When I was young, I also thought that as long as I worked hard, I would be accepted, but I gradually realized that some circles only belong to certain people." Haley's heart moved, and she asked softly, "Linda, why are you staying here?" Linda pondered for a moment, her smile tinged with helplessness and kindness, because some places, though oppressive, are gentler than the outside world. Haley chewed the warm bread quietly, feeling a warmth spreading from her stomach to her heart. She thanked him softly and got up to go water the flowers in the yard. The rose branches were disheveled from last night's storm. Haley crouched down and slowly straightened the branches. Her hands were covered in dirt when her phone dinged. It was a text from Tina. "Are you free this morning? I have gossip." Haley laughed and immediately replied, "Come to my place for coffee." Soon, Tina appeared at the back door of the villa with a cup of instant coffee. "Looking at the nightclub photoshoot posted on your WeChat moments last night. I almost thought you became famous overnight." "Don't make trouble," Haley smiled bitterly. "I will never get you set to places like that." The two sat on a garden bench. Tina drank her coffee and asked mysteriously, "Did you know that Richard investigated you last night?" Haley's face changed slightly. "Investigate me? What is he going to do?" Tina whispered. "An old friend of mine who works as a cashier at a nightclub," said Richard, "has been having people check your information lately and has even put your file together with that of a former waitress who went missing at the nightclub." Haley's heartbeat quickened, and her palms began to sweat. Why would he check on me? How would I know? "Just be careful." Tina patted her hands. "But don't worry, Alexander is not a pushover. He's invested so much in you. He definitely won't let anyone hurt you easily, but I'm afraid I'm just a substitute." Haley's voice was almost inaudible. "Don't think too much. As long as you know who you are, let others think what they want," Tina said solemnly. Haley nodded. But her heart was in a tangled knot. At lunchtime, Alexander came home earlier than usual. As soon as he walked in, the atmosphere in the house suddenly became tense. Haley tried to keep a low profile, but Alexander stopped her. "Are you free? Come with me to the greenhouse." The two walked into the glass greenhouse, one in front of the other. Sunlight streamed in through the skylight, scattering across the blooming orchids and succulents. The air was filled with scent of earth and flowers. "Did I behave badly last night?" Haley asked tentatively. Alexander turned around and looked at her with a complicated expression. "You performed very well, better than I expected. But I feel I am increasingly confused about my place in your world," Haley murmured, looking at a pot of blooming white roses. Alexander was silent for a moment, then suddenly whispered, "What do you think of Richard? He's powerful, very dangerous." Haley subconsciously recalled Richard's sharp gaze and intentional or unintentional temptations. "Yes, that's who he is." Alexander sighed softly. "Many years ago, he was my most trusted mentor. Then, because of phone incident, we became rivals." "What's the matter?" Haley couldn't help but ask. Alexander shook his head, his eyes darkening. "Some things in the past, if told, will only make the present worse." The air froze for a moment. Haley vaguely felt that she had touched the most hidden wound in Alexander's heart. "Haley, if one day you find yourself involved in some danger, please believe me, I will do everything can to protect you," Alexander said solemnly. She was a little dazed, her eyes filled with anxiety and gratitude. In the afternoon, Eric asked Haley to help him sort out the clutter in the basement. The basement was dark and damp, filled with old furniture and cardboard boxes. While cleaning, Haley accidentally found a stack of yellowed account books and several unopened letters in a broken box. The envelope was signed J&T Dress, was the former location of Blue Heart nightclub. The letter was dated the same week that a waitress at the nightclub disappeared. Driven by curiosity, Haley quietly pulled out a letter and opened it. There were only a few lines of scribbled words inside. "I can't go on like this. They won't let me go. If you see this letter, it means I have already." Haley's heartbeat quickened as she continued to read, only to find that the following words had been turned off. She froze, a sense of foreboding rising in her heart. Suddenly, footsteps were heard behind him. Eric stood at the top of the stairs and asked coldly, "What are you doing?" "I'm looking for the list and packing up at the same time." Haley pretended to be calm and put the letter in her pocket. Eric glanced at her, but without further inquiry, he said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and don't move things." With lingering fear, Haley packed up her other things and took the letter upstairs. She secretly put the letter in her drawer and decided to study it carefully in the evening. In the evening, Alexander and Richard suddenly appeared in the living room. At the same time, the air immediately became stagnant, as if even breathing had become cautious. "We have some things we need to talk about in person," Richard said, straight to the point in a firm tone. "Okay." Alexander smiled, but his eyes showed no sign of retreat. The two of them closed the door off the study, leaving only Haley and Eric outside the door, and the inexplicably tense atmosphere that enveloped the entire villa. Haley looked at Eric, wanting to speak, but stopping herself. "Don't ask," Eric whispered. "Some things are not your place to get involved." She nodded, but her heart grew heavier. At dinner, Alexander and Richard ate calmly, occasionally exchanging private conversations in English and Russian. Linda tried to look natural, but her facial muscles remained tense. Haley noticed that Richard's attention to her was stronger than ever before. His eyes kept wandering around the table, meeting her gaze intentionally or unintentionally. "Haley, where are you from?" Richard asked suddenly. "A small town in Nebraska," Haley replied calmly. "No wonder, he looks so simple." Richard smiled, but Haley felt there was a knife hidden in that smile. After dinner, Alexander saw Richard off, and Haley finally felt a sense of relief. She hurried back to her room and reread the letter she had found in the basement. She decided to go to the old nightclub tomorrow to find out the truth. As the night deepened, Haley tossed and turned in bed, still perceiving Richard's cold voice. She suddenly realized that she wasn't simply passively drawn into someone else's game. Perhaps a part of her past, deliberate teleconts, had been brought back into light because of her presence. "I have to find out how this all started." She clutched the letter in the dark. There was a whisper downstairs. It was Alexander and Eric. She pricked up her ears and only heard one sentence. "She can't know the truth." Haley's heart trembled and her eyes became determined.
Please stay tuned for the next episode.
See you there.